set. I feel a song coming on. I promise the music. Making web maps, how I love it, how I like to put them all online, how I dearly love to work with polygons and lines. Yeah, making web maps, how we need them for understanding and to take action. Seems to me that spatial thinking's gaining traction. Making dashboards and other kinds of apps. My fingers making taps. My fingers making taps. Other interests will just have to wait. That is just my fate. I'd rather concentrate on making web maps for solving problems in our world and our communities. It's so necessary, if you please. With spatial data, it truly is a breeze. Making web maps, making web maps, making web maps. How I love them so. Oh, that was so bad. Making web maps. Oh my gosh, that was terrible. My apologies to all the musicians out there. Maps are more than reference documents. They are analytical tools for solving problems. One of the developments that I wanted to share with you that has occurred over the last year is, and building on prior developments, but this ability of making these relationship maps. Oh, I really love these. I wish I could get excited about this. I truly do. Let's pop this out into a different tab. We've got drinkers and smokers, for example. And look, you've got this 3x3 grid in here, a 3x3 grid where you've got high smoking, low drinking, high drinking, and high smoking. Again, where did the data come from? Who created it? Can I trust it? What do these patterns show me? What's where? Why is it there? Why should we care? But the ability to do this kind of relationship map, it doesn't have to be drinking and smoking, right? It can be invasive species versus water quality. It could be hazards versus resiliency plans in cities. There's a lot of relationships that we could uncover. We could also map things that have no relationship at all to try to pick apart causation versus correlation, which is an important topic, getting students to think spatially. But this is easy to do inside ArcGIS Online. These are relationship maps. And you can change the symbology here rather easy. So if you go to, for example, these tabs, and I'm going to go to county level, and if I go over here to, okay, what do we have here in terms of the symbology? We've got these styles here, and notice that I've got, style options. Hey, 3x3? No, I want a 2x2. So I can change that, and look, now I've got, interesting. Being critical of the data, I'm thinking, northern Missouri versus southern Iowa, that's not that different. So how was the data collected in different states? Is that reflective of what we see here? 3x3, we'll go back to what we had at the beginning. 4x4, more is not always better in a GIS, right? So sometimes we see patterns and relationships and trends, and sometimes we got to think about how we're communicating our results. Clarity is good in mapping, right? So more is not always better. With 4x4, there's some maybe things that are a bit confusing. Maybe there's too much for people to think about. So maybe I'll go back to the 3x3, etc. But the point is, these relationship maps are pretty easy to develop and to then pick apart relationships, okay, and understanding our world with a variety of different kinds of data. So I truly, I know it sounds geeky. I really love these relationship maps. And I touched on this earlier, but in teaching and learning with GIS, I do have some favorite Living Atlas apps that I use frequently in instruction, from primary school actually to university level and beyond. And one of those is the Wayback Imagery. So I'm going to pull that up in a tab. I know many of you probably know about this. The Wayback Imagery, Esri, do a search on that and you'll find it. You've got this tool, this swipe tool, that you can use to look at changes in urbanization in this case, or water level. As we pan over here, we're looking at urbanized western Las Vegas. We pan over to Lake Mead, which is a reservoir, as probably all of you know. And I'm looking at this island that was an island in 2014, and now it is part of the land. There's no island. The point is, water levels are decreasing. What are we going to do about it? If communities are getting surface water for planning their future and we don't have groundwater for them to tap into anymore, what's going to happen? What do we need to do about this situation? So you can see within just a few clicks the situation there with water. Or you could look at agricultural expansion in central USA or in Saudi Arabia. You could look at coastal erosion in England. You could look at the construction of the Three Gorges Dam in China or other major engineering works. You could look at glacial advance or retreat. You could look at deforestation, reforestation with this single tool. You've got terabyte loads of satellite imagery at your fingertips. You also have this play button that actually lets you do this kind of thing where you're playing an animation based on the ages of the satellite imagery for your community, for a region, for another geographic area. It's really fascinating to be able to do this. And again, a very powerful teaching tool, teaching about the whys of where. So that's the Wayback Imagery, still one of my favorite tools. I'm going to close a couple tabs just for sanity here. Another one that I think is really important and easy to use is this Drought Aware. Now, unlike the Wayback Imagery, the Drought Aware app is just USA. I know we've got some international people on the live feed today, but I just wanted to assure you that yes, there are data sets for the whole planet, and then there are also data sets for subsets of the planet. This particular one is from the US EPA and other US federal agencies, so it's just USA based. However, it's very useful and powerful. So for example, I've got a web mapping application, no sign-in required. I can look at drought. Why does it matter? Why do we care about drought? Now, it always, every time I pull this up, of course, it looks different because it's based on dynamic data. Fortunately, here in central Colorado, it's looking a little better than it was a month ago. So we've had some snows here in central Colorado. The eastern part of Colorado and then western, southwestern Kansas, northwestern Nebraska, northeastern Nebraska, et cetera, are looking pretty grim still. So another thing that I love about mapping is that sometimes it challenges our perception of how the world works or how the world is. Sometimes it confirms our preconceptions of how the world is, but maps have always been intriguing to both confirm and challenge our perception of the way the world works. So in this case, if I click on some of these counties in southeast Kansas, for example, I'm seeing, why does it matter if we've got drought? Okay, well, one of the reasons why is because it affects economic activities. So in this case, let's take a look at that county in southwest Kansas. Wow. $134 million of ag sales. That is mind-blowing. It really is. Some of these counties are over $1 billion. Look at the wheat alone is millions. Soybeans, hay, livestock is multiple millions. So drought is not just a physical thing. It affects livelihoods and the economy and so on and so forth. We are desperately dependent on our physical environment for our economic vitality. And so this is a clear indication of that, right? And you can look at other counties as well, and you can look at this amazing graph that you can see about the drought conditions in County A versus County B. Fascinating to have this at your fingertips. And it also shows the fundamentals of GIS, right? You've got the G part, which is the map, the I part, which is the table of data, and the S part that links them together. So very powerful tool. That is the Drought Aware app. It's part of the Living Atlas apps. I also like the World Water Balance. Let's scroll up to that one and take a look at that. This is a global data set. It looks different every time you pull it up. I'm going to go over to the left side. You've got 6 variables at your fingertips. Let's look at precipitation. So here I've got a pattern. Even if I'm teaching primary school, hey students, where is there more rain versus less rain? Why is there more rain at the equator here in Africa? What's up here in the northern part of Africa? And remember what we talked about yesterday, students. Oh, and then hopefully they're saying, yeah, the Sahara Desert, it's lower precipitation. Okay, so if we click in southern Libya, based on our discussion, we should see a lower precipitation rate, right, than maybe in other parts of the world. So here's our graph. Look, students, there are whole months. Who can find the longest period in that part of the world where there hasn't been any precipitation? Okay, and look, there was a rain event in August. Maybe it was last December, where it was 28 millimeters. That's still not very much, right? That's less than 3 centimeters. That's like this. So not very much, but that was significantly more than it had in the last 20 years in that location. As opposed to, if we went to the Amazon, right, we see not a winter and summer, but we see a wet season and a dry season, right? If I scroll across here, I'm seeing a wet season and a dry season. The wet season, hey students, where's the wet season based on your observations? Oh, it looks like it's March, April, May, and the dry season is right around now, August through December, November, December, October, right in there. That's the dry season. And look at again, fostering numeracy and mathematical, statistical literacy and fluency. You've got a different y-axis here, right? It's no longer in the tens of centimeters, it is, or millimeters, it is in the hundreds. So we have the top of the scale here is 600, whereas over in Libya, the top of the scale on the y-axis was 24. So getting them to think about the different ways that you can interact with mathematics, graphs, maps, all in one application, the world water balance. And then what's the relationship between precipitation and evapotranspiration, for example, or other variables? So showing the interlinkages between those variables, I think, is very powerful. And then, closer to my home here, I know some of you are from far-flung regions around the world, and it's great to have you on here. If I click in Southeast Texas, there are a couple of big spikes, and hopefully students will say, oh, those are the hurricanes that have roared through there in August and September in times past. Exactly. So, okay, what's the precipitation there now versus 20 years ago? And in this case, it's actually had some pretty big rainy seasons, not just hurricanes, but tropical storms of various kinds. This is not real-time data. It's actually about 3 months old. As you can see here, the latest is from August. But if I come back in December, it's going to have the September. So it's about 3-month lag time, but a very powerful tool to teach about water and water balance around the world. So that's another one of my favorite